Tomorrow's elections, New York City, Virginia, New Jersey, expected to give us a better understanding of where the Democratic Party is right now. We got some new polls out. They show the party is hemorrhaging support among its own voters. Listen.
The Democratic Party brand is still a problem for the party. Look at this. Their favorable rating is at 29%. Now, the Republican favorable rating is not that much better, 33%, but still a tick better. 55% of Americans have an unfavorable view. A majority of Americans have an unfavorable view of the Democratic Party. Now, this is a lot of Democrats that are feeding that. They're sort of hating on their own party. We'll see if they succeed tomorrow night.
All right, let's go ahead and bring in Meghan Hays, former director of messaging and message planning for the Biden White House, and Matt Whitlock, former senior advisor at the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Great to be with both of you. Let's get into some of these numbers. Take a look at this. New polling out from Pew. A percentage of Americans who say their own party makes them feel frustrated. Democrats, 67%. Oh, we got the wrong call for it. Let's switch to this. All right, we'll start here. Percentage of Americans who say their own party makes them feel hopeful. Democrats, 50%. Republicans, 69%. Then take a look at this one. Percentage of Americans who say their own party makes them feel frustrated. We got Democrats, 67%. Republicans, 40%. Now, Meghan, these numbers obviously don't tell the whole story when it comes to election outcomes, but they're pretty devastating.
Yeah, and that poll was also a month ago before the shutdown started. So I do think that these have probably changed significantly in both directions. But I think that one thing that this is telling us is that Democrats are really passionate about the economic failures of Donald Trump. That is why you see people out in the elections. And the solutions are different in New York and in Virginia and in New Jersey. They are definitely different. Mamdani is definitely different than the folks running in New Jersey.
But if they're disappointed with President Trump, why are they holding it against Democratic candidates?
Because they're not holding it against Democratic parties. That poll is for a national Democratic Party. That's not the people running in their own states and their own districts. The Democratic Party has never been a top-down leadership. It has always been from the bottom up. If you look at all the successful candidates, they've built a grassroots operation, and they've really pushed policies and talked about issues that people care about, affordability, and that is what everyone cares about right now.
Well, up or down, you know, top to bottom, bottom up, it doesn't matter. The messaging and the policies are not resonating. Matt, what do you say?
I think the Democrats have a pretty big boy who cried wolf problem in that for the last 10 years, since Donald Trump came down the golden elevator, they've built their entire energy apparatus around opposing President Trump, telling everyone he's a fascist, he's Hitler, he's destroying democracy. And so they rallied their base to that. And when their base said, okay, what are you going to do about it? We've got our pitchforks, we've got our torches. They said, well, Cory Booker just gave a 25-hour speech, or we've got these TikTok videos, or we're going to tweet about it. So they've got all this pent-up frustration, and their elected officials in Washington, to Meghan's point, aren't really giving them a good outlet for it. And so that's why they're frustrated that their own leadership isn't putting it in a direction where they can actually make an impact.
Yeah, and
that's how you get Zoran.
Yeah, well, and to that point, here's Bill Maher talking about how you address grievances in a normal political time. Take a listen.
I fear the Democratic Party is at risk of becoming a ghost brand, too. Like Sears, it used to be mighty and ascendant and popular. Democrats once controlled Congress and the Supreme Court, or at least competitive. But now, even at a time when President Trump is turning 250 years of democracy into jean shorts, the Democrats have their lowest rating in 35 years. What happened? I don't know. What happened to Sears?
What happened to Sears is it failed to keep pace with its own customers when retail shopping moved online. It's not the same, obviously, but draws an obvious parallel with a national party, as you mentioned, struggling to keep pace with its own supporters.
Right, but I think that's why you are seeing all of these candidates that are in the big tent party that have different solutions and different ideas that are driving enthusiasm. Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill are driving a different kind of enthusiasm and a different kind of direction for voters than Zoran Mamdani. And it's all part of just, they want solutions for affordability that they are not getting from the Republicans and Donald Trump.
But that speaks to the point about messaging, right? Yep. Because if you have Democrats voting for socialists and calling that in keeping with the party, and then you also have folks supporting senators like John Fetterman, it speaks to sort of discoordination.
There's a huge disconnect. And I think that to Meghan's point about Mikey Sherrill, for example, Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger both called on Barack Obama to come in and be their closer, which to me suggests Democrats still have not come to terms with their identity crisis. If the best closer they can bring in is a president from 10 years ago who essentially, paved the way for Donald Trump, I think we're going to see more trouble, more of that identity crisis before it gets better. Because that affordability issue, for example, for Mikey Sherrill, she has challenges in the fact that her policies have driven up utility bills. And so she's trying to get away from that by saying, well, President Trump did this, President Trump did that. But it goes back to my initial point that Donald Trump is their sort of North Star of opposition, and they don't have a lot else sort of holding that coalition together by Scotch tape.
Even in the wake of everything we saw play out with the Democrats in 2024 and the disaster, failure of leadership there, nobody new has emerged yet. Hopefully, these elections will start building towards something for both parties. Thanks to both of you for coming on with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.